Hey, what's up, and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here in video format. First off, I want to thank everybody who came to the live stream on Sunday after the Tennessee game. I do a post-game show there. It was awesome. We had 1,600 people live concurrent during that stream. That is awesome. And because of that, I want to do a watch party for Monday Night Football. So put it in your calendar. You want to watch the game alongside with me live on Monday night. Make sure you're subscribed and ding that notification bell so you don't miss out on it. But yes, there's going to be a live Monday Night Football, Browns versus Ravens watch party. I'm going to be watching the games with you. You get to see my reactions, my celebrations, my disappointment, whatever it is that happens on Monday Night Football, you'll be able to watch it live with me. So if you don't want to miss that, if that sounds intriguing to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you don't miss that. But without further ado, let's get into your questions. There are a lot of them. This first one is from Pan Gas, who says, "Hey Q, I remember when the Haslams fired Dorsey, you said I'm done. First of all, I'm so happy you're not done because I appreciate the channel and your content and everything you've done in this channel. I'm glad I'm not done either. Having said that, is it safe to say the culture has changed and we are living in a new era of future winning seasons and playoff runs?" I talked about this on the live stream, but I do think that the Browns are at the cusp of finding real organizational and franchise stability. It looks like they have the quarterback. It looks like they have the coach. It looks like they have the GM and the infrastructure that is going to be able to last for years and last for years without friction. It looks like all of those things are in place. The only thing that needs to happen is about 2-3 years of sustained success. If you get that, then all of a sudden you're on the path, on the road to finding organizational stability, which this franchise has not had since they came back in 1999. Hell, they might have not had it since they fired Marty Schottenheimer, or this is something the Browns have not had since like the 80s, you know, where they were organizationally sound. And you can argue they have not been a top flight organization since about the 60s. So this is something that has taken the Browns a long time to rebuild from, but for the first time in a very long time, it looks like you have all the pieces in place. Now all you need to do is win football games, and that's not easy. That's why all of these things have fallen apart, because the Browns have not consistently won football games. But if they can win football games consistently for the next 2-3 seasons, then that will put the wheels in place for the organization to finally find stability. And I know Jimmy Haslam does not have the best track record as the owner of the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, I am painfully aware of his ineptitude at times with this franchise, but that does not mean you cannot have a good franchise if you have a bad owner. Look at the New Orleans Saints, one of the better franchises in football. They have a terrible owner, a notorious owner, who Drew Brees came in there, found some sustained success with Sean Payton, and then boom. Next thing you know, you have a top-flight franchise. The Baltimore Ravens did that with Art Modell, who was notoriously awful in Cleveland. So, you know, you can find it with these bad owners. You just got to be able to have those 2-3 years of sustained success, and the Browns are finally pointed in that direction. This is year one. They got to continue on next year and the year after. But if they do so, I think we might have found stability, which is insane for me to say. I don't think I would have said that at the beginning of the season, but it looks like that's the case. This one comes from Trace McSorley, obviously not the real Trace McSorley, who says, "Hey Q, do you think we will beat the Squillers or the Ravens, and do you think we would beat the Titans in the playoffs if we go to the Titans?" I think so. We could beat the Titans in the playoffs, because then we're going to have Denzel Ward back. They're probably going to try to throw the ball a lot more. I think you add Denzel Ward back, some of the success they had throwing the ball kind of dies, because Denzel Ward shifts that whole secondary into the right spots. Maybe you'll have Ronnie Harrison back as well. So I like the Browns' chances if that happens. We'll see with the Steelers and the Ravens. I think they can beat the Ravens. The Ravens are another team that can dominate with outside zone running, but the Browns have done a good job there. If the Browns' offense comes to play, and that's going to be a tough task because this Ravens defense is still very good, and they're getting back healthy. So it's not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a game that you can definitely win. In the Pittsburgh game, Pittsburgh, the one thing they have that really, really concerns me as far as the Browns matchup against them is a dominant defensive line. And that if there are two things that can tank the Browns game plan, is penetration on the defensive line, both on the run game and in the passing game. We've seen what penetration on the defensive line can do in the run game. It effectively shuts it down. And in the pass game, Baker's been better with dirty pockets as of late, but we know he is absolutely 100% at his best when he has a clean pocket, and he's able to set his feet, be in rhythm, and lock down field. So we'll see with those things. Pittsburgh is probably the toughest matchup out of everybody on that list, but Baltimore also matches up a little bit better than Tennessee did this week. The next question comes from Midnight Sky, who says, even though Baker had a great game, do you think most of the media will just focus on his fumble and garbage time? If they want to sound like idiots, yeah, they can do that. But like, if you want to actually sound like you have an educated opinion about football and not just be ragingly biased towards some narrative that you have that Baker Mayfield's not good, I wouldn't go on air and say that on national TV. But again, if somebody wants to do that, they're just exposing the clown makeup on their face. This next question comes from Noah, who says, I think they should have thrown more in the second half, but that's my thoughts. What about you? I definitely think they should have been a little bit more aggressive. I don't know if they should have threw like a bunch of times, but, try them on the play action. It's been working all day. Try to get a couple kill shots through the play action. I felt like on third down or in some of these short distance games, I feel like the Browns passing game has been more consistent than the running game has in those areas. So I would have went with that to keep some of these drives alive, to keep the ball out of the hands of Ryan Tannehill. But that's not what they went to do. I think they will learn from that mistake in the weeks going forward. The next question comes from Corey Clayton, who says, even after this major key win, will it change the media's opinion about us, or will we be stunned and be hated on because we are the Browns? No, they'll change their tune, especially ESPN. They got to sell this Monday night game. Like, they're going to be nice towards the Browns. They're going to talk a ton about the Browns this week because that Monday night game, they got to sell it. They're going to be trying to sell the Ravens. If the Ravens can beat the Cowboys, it's going to be a pretty big game for both teams. Well, more so for the Ravens than the Browns because the Browns got the one win out of the two that they definitely needed to get here when you talked about this bundle of games with Tennessee and Baltimore. Yeah, they'll give us respect this week. It's up to the Browns to win on Monday Night Football to continue to keep that respect. But that's what it is. I think the Browns will get respect this week from ESPN just because, they got to sell the game. And if they're selling that the Browns are garbage, nobody's going to watch that game. This next question comes from Noah's Movies, who says, hey, Quincy, do you think the beatdown Tennessee gave us in week 1 last year was part of the motivation? Or do you think they just realized the importance of this game and went out hot? I think it's both. I think you remember how disrespectful Tennessee was. I remembered how disrespectful Tennessee was and how disrespectful, quite frankly, Tennessee has been all year to everybody, especially the AFC North for whatever reason, right? I mean, they disrespected the Baltimore Ravens by dancing on their logo. Like, this is a very disrespectful team in how they get down. They were disrespecting the Browns. On the mic'd up, you could see, I think it was Logan Ryan tell Jarvis Landry the Browns have no heart. And I feel like those things stick with you. The type of the team and the way that the Titans get down, they're very disrespectful. And look, that works when you're bullying guys and, you're doing your thing and you're throwing Josh Norman 40 yards. That get down works. But, at some point you get humbled. That's exactly what Baker was doing in 2018 where he was bullying guys, getting down like a jerk a little bit. And then, 2019 humbled him, and that kind of changed how he carried himself from there on. So, they carry themselves like jerks. That's what the Tennessee Titans like to do. That's how they roll. That's their identity. And, the Browns gave him a receipt for that one. And, feels good. Next question comes from Blaine Stevenson, who says, Quincy, love your content. You make Sundays better at my house. Thank you for that. Do you think the second half struggles will help the Browns in their prep for Baltimore and teach them how to handle a halftime lead? I think this is helpful because instead of going into this game talking about how good you played and how dominant you were, now the coaching staff can say, hey, what happened in that second half? There is a sense of urgency to fix things. It doesn't feel like a complete win where you get all high on the win and then you come out the next week flat. Now you have things to work on. Now you have things not to feel good about. Now you have fuel for your coaches to be more, critical. And so you can see more in these wins because a lot of the times when you win a ton of games, it's happened with the Baltimore Ravens last year. When you win a ton of games by blowout margins, you forget all of your flaws, right? You just completely forget your flaws because you haven't had to think about them because you're blowing teams out. You know, you get more optimistic about things you shouldn't be that optimistic about, like your wide receiver situation if you were the Baltimore Ravens, and you start to kind of get this false picture of what this team is. And that's exactly what happened to the Baltimore Ravens because they blew teams out. What's good about the Browns not having a great point differential is that very rarely after one of these wins do they have the full 100% license to feel great about themselves, right? Like it's always something that they need to fix and that they need to capitalize on. And that's also why Pittsburgh, people want to say they're the worst 11-0 team, but that's why Pittsburgh probably has the best chance out of any team that's been 11-0 at this point to finish undefeated in the regular season because they aren't winning by large margins. They are aware of their flaws, painfully so, and they do have to fix things. And you know what? If you want to be able to maintain a great winning record in the regular season, you have to have some wins that feel a little bit like a loss because those are the things that help motivate your team to get better. When you're just beating everybody, there's really no need to think that you can get better. You know, if I'm sitting here and I can attract Rihanna just how I look right now, there's no reason for me to ever go to the gym, right? Because I'm already attracting who I wanted to attract. So, you know, it's the same thing for a football team. If you're already dominating teams, why would you want to work harder? Because you're already doing what you need to given the work that you have. So the Browns, long story short, the Browns not blowing them out or not continuing to blow them out to the end of this game, I think is beneficial for the long run because it gives them the sense of urgency that there are still things to fix on this team. As opposed to feeling like you have arrived fully and that there is nothing you really need to do. You don't really need to put in the extra work, right? So I think these are good things for the Cleveland Browns. Next question comes from Nick Townsend, who says, if you could make one change to this team personnel-wise, offense or defense, what would it be? I would have gotten more depth at the interior defensive line position so you could shore up the interior defensive, so you could shore up the run defense on the inside because they always get gashed on the inside. They can stop the outside. I think that would have made you a more complete defense. Next question comes from Beep Beep Out of My Way, who says, what do you think of the Browns defensive line play? Felt like the front seven all showed up at the level they needed to. I know Olivier Vernon didn't have a big game, but Larry Ogunjobi and Sheldon Richardson were massive in this game, so I am happy with what they did. Next question comes from Cody Donkey 231, who says, hey, Quincy, do you think Baker could have another half like he did again? He's the only quarterback to throw 4 touchdowns in a half, and he's done it twice. Absolutely. When Baker's hot, anything is possible. When Baker is on, he is dangerous. He is very dangerous. And, you know, I hear people saying, oh, it's a glimpse of his rookie year. No. He was not this good his rookie year. This is much better than Baker has ever been in his entire career is when he gets hot this year. So, yeah. And I would expect him to get hot more often as he gets more comfortable with the season. And who knows, maybe when he's hot might become the norm in a few years once he's truly comfortable with the system. So this is, again, good to see your quarterback develop. Hopefully you see these things go on. And the good thing about Baker Mayfield is that this has been part of, 6 weeks where he has put together good football games where you feel like he's really improving and really starting to get his handle on the system. This next question comes from Gummy Gamer, who says, hey, Q, following the Titans game, do you think the Monday night game against the Ravens, will Kevin have more faith in Baker to win with the pass, or do you think he'll go with the heavy run with Chubb and Hunt and have Baker play action? Love your content, man. P.S. Good work. I think you got to learn from what happened in week 1. In week 1, they tried to go out with the spread and try to throw all over the Ravens, and I think that can work in doses, but not necessarily if that's like your main plan coming into the game. I think they're going to go in and do what they didn't do in week 1 and run the ball and see where that gets them, and try to just get some of that outside zone on the Baltimore Ravens and see if they can soften that team up from there. So that's what I think they'll go into in week 1. And now the threat of Baker Mayfield is there, right? I think teams have to respect it now. You can't just put 8-9 in the box and say Baker Mayfield beat us, because he just proved if you do that, he can most definitely beat you. That's not something you want to do. So it's going to let the running game have a little bit more breathing room. Again, this is big for the Browns. And if Baker can continue to play like this is massive. But that's it for this week's questions. Thank you guys for asking them. And again, guys, have a good day. Have a great night.